Welcome to the National Safe Tractor Machinery Operation Program, brought to you by Cornell Cooperative Extension of Cuyahoga County. Today we're going to talk about tractors. Tractors were first developed in 1892. They should only be used for work purposes. They are not recreational vehicles. Their primary functions are moving loads, supplying power, carrying implements, and transporting loads and other machinery. The four main types of hazards when you're discussing tractors are overturns, runovers, PTO entanglements, and older tractors. So let's discuss these. Overturns. There's two different types of overturns. One is side overturns, which will be caused by turning or driving too close to a ditch, driving too fast on rough roads, or making sharp turns, especially if you have the front end loader raised too high. The rearward overturns are caused by hitching somewhere other than the drawbar when towing or pulling, or driving the tractor straight up a slope that is too steep. Overturns account for about 50% of the tractor fatalities every year. When you are in a tractor that is turning over, you only have 3/4 of a second before you hit the point of no return, and that is way too short of a time to have a reaction. So many tractors should have a rollover protection structure. Now, this is a safety feature that can provide the operator from being killed if the tractor turns over, because they will not crush them. It will protect them from being crushed, but it will not protect the tractor from actually rolling over. Now let's discuss a PTO. The PTO is the power takeoff. This is the drive shaft that supplies the power from the tractor to an implement. It can also be the power source on an implement to another location on the same implement. The PTO shafts will turn 540 or 1,000 revolutions per minute. Again, that is way too fast for you to be able to have a good reaction time. So you should avoid entanglements by making sure that the shafts are well shielded and avoid moving around the moving shafts when they are operating. Runovers. Now, runovers occur in three different situations. One, the passenger that is on the tractor falls off and is run over. There is a saying that if you have one seat, one passenger. You should not have passengers if you do not have the seats for them. You should also never stand on the drawbar, the axle, the hitches, or the fenders, because again, you could fall off and be run over. Another way to be run over is if the operator falls off or is knocked off while the tractor is moving. This occurs if you try to go under a low-lying tree branch that you didn't see and it knocks you off. The third way that runovers occur is if the person on ground is run over. So if you try to start your tractor from ground while the tractor is in gear, which is a no-no, the tractor could take off and you could be run over. Small children are also frequently run over, well, maybe not as frequently, because they are attracted to the loud noise in the tractors and they want to help and they come running. You don't always see them. You should also always make sure that you shut off the tractor and set the brake before dismounting to avoid being run over. So older tractor hazards. Older tractors usually can lack the safety features of the newer tractors, and they may also have more mechanical problems due to their age and the wear and tear. Many firms still have 30 to 40-year-old tractors that are running. They do not, a lot of them do not have your rollover protection devices. They don't have seat belts. Their seats don't have the sides for the arm and the back. The seat doesn't always adjust well. A lot of them have an absence of safety start system, and your brakes may not work properly. Your front wheels on some of these older tractors tend to be slower to turn. A lot of the older tractors don't have flashers, and a lot of the older tractors don't have inadequate PTO shields. So let's talk about what youth is allowed to do when operating a tractor. They can mow pastures, fields, and yards. They can rake and bale hay and straw. They can tow hay and grain wagons. They can pick rocks with a front end loader. They can use a tractor mounted blade to scrape manure off the ground. They can use the tractor to power augers and elevators. And they can use log chains to pull old fence posts and tree stumps from the ground. So employers should always keep in mind a few things when they are working with youth. You need to make sure that the youth has the experience to safely operate a tractor and the machinery. Some of these are complex combinations, and the younger operators don't always have the skill to safely operate them. Youth also tend to be very overconfident in their ability. They are very prone to having nothing's going to happen to me attitude, and I can handle anything that is thrown at me. Employers should always refer to the accepted guidelines for age-appropriate tasks involving tractors and machine operation when hiring youth. So age is not the only indicator of task capability. Most people need specific training in a particular task before they are expected to do that task. You need to train somebody. You should never just tell an employee to go out and do something without having that employee show you that they actually know how to handle that equipment. Let's talk about the tractor instrument panel. So the main purpose of this is to tell the operator about the operating conditions around the tractor. A serious malfunction in the machine could lead to repair bills that cost a lot of money or injury to the operator. So you should always check the instrument panel when you start it up. You should always check it while it's operating, and if you hear a change in sound while you're operating it, or if an abnormal gauge reading starts up, you need to make sure you safely shut down that tractor and in a safe place and seek help. So one of the main gauges that you'll see on your tractor is the tachometer. Now this displays the rotations per minute of the tractor engine. So if you are using a tractor with an incorrect RPM, it could damage your engine, your driveline, or your PTO, and it could create a hazardous situation that could result in injury to the operator. So the PTO speed is really important. You need to make sure the PTO speed and the RPMs are compatible. If you're running too low of an engine speed, it could stall the tractor, and if you're running too high of an engine speed, you can shear off the implement's safety pins. So other gauges that you want to keep an eye on in a tractor instrument panel is the oil pressure, the electrical charging, the engine temperature, the fuel gauge, the air filter conditions, transmission temperature, hydraulic system oil level, and the hours of work. So the tractor operation symbols that you will find on your dash will provide a quick information regarding the operation functions and malfunctions. You should always make sure that you read your owner's manual and work with the owner of the tractor to make sure you know what all those symbols. The tractor controls are color-coded into 4 main groups. The red color involves the stopping of the engine. The orange color is ground motion controls. The yellow color is power engagement controls. And the black is positioning and adjustment. Now, a lot of the older tractors do not have the color codes, or if they did at one point, a lot of them get worn off. So that's another safety hazard when you're talking about using older tractors. So the stop engine controls are the ones that come in red. Your key shut off should have red letters on the key switch, and your fuel shut off switch should also be red and labeled pull to stop. Your ground motion controls are the orange colored controls. These control the engine speed, the transmission, your parking brake, your emergency brakes, and the differential lock. The power engagement controls are the ones you see in yellow. These will control your PTO, your cutter heads, your feed rolls, your elevators, your augers. And then the positioning and adjusting controls are the ones that you see in black. These will adjust your seat, they will adjust the fans, the radio, the lights, the flashers. So let's talk about the location and direction of movement. There are 3 common types of control devices on a farm tractor: the foot controls, the hand controls, and a combination of hand and foot controls. The best way to learn the controls of your particular tractor is to read the owner's manual, the operator's manual. Talk to the tractor operator who uses that implement the most. Make sure that there's nothing that's particular about that tractor. Not all tractors are made the same. Now, however, your foot brake pedal must always be on the right side, and your foot clutch pedal must always be on the left side. If you have a combination brake clutch pedal, it will also be on the left. So what do you do before you operate a tractor? There's a few things that you should inspect: the fuel, the coolant, the engine oil, the hydraulic oil, the battery. Make sure all the lug nuts and wheels are in good condition, your tires in good condition, there's no loose parts. You have your slow moving vehicle emblem on the back. You don't see any leaking fluid, that you can get in and out with the operator's platform and stairs are clear, that your seat and your seatbelt are working well, there's a fire extinguisher in your tractor, that all the lights and flashers are working, and that you can see from the driver's. Here's just a few pictures of checking oils levels and liquid levels. So when you're starting and stopping diesel and gasoline engines, you should always check the oil, fuel, and coolant levels, check the tires, check the controls and make sure that they're all in neutral positions. The tractor should always be in neutral or start park position, and the parking brake should be set prior to starting. And once you're running, you should check all your indicators and gauges on the instrument panel to make sure that everything is normal. And you should also warm the engine at 800 to 1,000 RPMs for a few minutes. Now, you should establish yourself as a good tractor operator by using the following procedures each time you climb into a tractor and sit in the seat. Keep the operator platform free of tools, equipment, mud, and other debris. Don't be throwing empty cans of soda and bottles around that can cause accidents. Use the handholds and steps as you mount the tractor. Try to keep 3 points on the tractor at all times. So 2 hands and 1 foot, 2 feet and 1 hand, but there should always be 3 points of contact as you mount the steps. Adjust your seat and steering wheel if necessary. So if you weren't the last one to drive that particular vehicle, make sure that your seat is in the position you want it to be in, your steering wheel is in the position you want it, and you don't want to be adjusting these while you're driving. Adjust and buckle the seatbelt. Also, make sure your major controls are in the neutral position. Your PTO, your hydraulics, your gear shift, they should all be in the neutral position. If you're starting inside a building, also make sure that you have adequate ventilation so you don't build up carbon monoxide fumes. Here's a picture of just the 3 points of contact. He's got both hands and 1 foot as he moves his second foot. So when you're stopping or dismounting a tractor, prepare for shutdown. Allow the engine to cool at a fast idle. Work the hydraulic levels to relieve pressure. Park on a level surface. Lower all of your equipment to the ground. Place all controls and switches in an off, neutral, or locked position, and chock the wheels if a heavy load is attached to the tractor. When you're moving and steering a tractor, you should know the pattern of the gear shift before attempting to move any tractor. This all goes back to knowing your equipment and reading the owner's manual. Know where your gear shift is, how to move it, and what position things are in. You should always you should always start in a lower gear and move higher as you work. The wheel brakes. So the individual wheel brakes are great to use in assisted steering in tight spaces, and they can help you control slippage when you're on the steeper areas. But make sure your wheel brakes are always locked together when you're traveling on the highway. When you steer, maintain 2-hand control of the steering wheel. If you hit a hole or a bump in the field, the wheel can be jerked from your hands. So if you have both hands on, you should still have control of the steering. Jackknifing or damage to the tractor tires, and or towed equipment can occur if you're turning too tight with attached implement. So operating your tractor in reverse. There are a few common hazards. You may not see people, animals, and other objects when you're looking over your shoulder. Coworkers that are assisting you with hitching an implement can be crushed between the tractor and the implement if your foot slips off the clutch. And you do have a tendency to shift your body slightly while turned partway around, and that can cause your feet to also slip from the clutch or the brake pedals. The best way to master the art of backing a tractor with an attached implement is to practice doing this in a safe environment. Make sure that there's nobody around that you can accidentally run over. So we discussed that 50% of all tractor fatalities are caused by overturns. So you should know where the center of gravity is. It's the point of balance where all the parts of an object balance. A tractor will not overturn if the center of gravity stays inside the stability baseline. and the center of gravity moves around inside the baseline area as the tractor is operated. The stability baselines are the imaginary lines that connect the wheels of the tractor as the tractor sets on the ground. Centrifugal force is the outward force nature exerts on objects moving in a circular motion, and this greatly increases as your speed increases and then can cause the tractor to turn over. You also should know your angle of pull, the space that is created between the ground surface and the point of attachment on a tractor. The drawbar is the only safe place to attach an implement. If you try to attach it elsewhere, it may increase your angle of pull and you can roll over. So use your tractor safely. The purpose of the tractor is to use as a power source, to carry or pull machines, to move loads, or transport materials. If you're not using it correctly, you can always have an accident. So here's a tractor that was a little bit too close to a steep slope, and this is an example of where the drawbar is. So avoid death or injury. It's always important when you're working on a farm. Do not allow riders. Make sure your PTO shafts are all guarded. Only hitch to the drawbar. Use proper rated chains, cables, or tow straps. If you're pulling, you don't want one of those to snap back on you. Make sure you avoid ditches and embankments. Don't go at higher speeds than necessary, especially when you're turning. Try to avoid obstacles. Keep an eye out of your surroundings. Carry loads as low to the ground as possible, and keep your tractor machinery well maintained. When you're operating on the tractor on public roads, most of the crashes occur between farm equipment and motor vehicles. They occur during the daylight and in good weather. It is a good practice to use an escort vehicle if possible when transporting wide loads, and always make sure your slow moving vehicle emblem is on if you're going less than 25 miles per hour on a public highway. So here's your SVM. Your SVM should always be visible to traffic coming up behind you. Let's talk about lighting and marking. So the American Society of Agriculture Engineers has made recommendations for the lighting and markings on the trailer or the tractor. The 2 red lights should be mounted on the rear of the tractor. You should have 2 amber lights to the front and 2 red colored lights to the rear, mounted with flashers, and your SVM emblem should be noticeable from about 1,000 feet. Let's talk about implements. Tractor hitches are designed so that the downward and rearward force during a pull are below the center of gravity. You need to maintain the tractor stability, so your angle of pull should be kept as low as possible by hitching to the drawbar only or a 3-point. So if you are hitched incorrectly, your angle of pull does not lower if the front end rises and increases the risk of overturn. So let's discuss the drawbar implements. These are the steps for hitching to a drawbar. 1, you got to position your tractor to align with the hole in the drawbar with the hole in the implement hitch. This is called spotting. You will need to practice the skill. Stop the engine, put the tractor in park, and set the brakes. Attach the implement using a proper size hitch pin and security clip. Raise the implement jack stand and remove chock blocks from the wheels. Connect the PTO shaft, the hydraulic hoses, and all the electrical requirements. So here is a diagram of somebody who is spotting to try to line up those holes. And again, here's a picture of the drawbar, and you can see the hole in it. Ground driving is when the power to run an implement comes from the wheels turning on the ground. So examples of this are your discs, your hay rakes, your planters, and some of your older manure spreaders. Key points to know about safety when using ground-driven implements. Know the machine's width compared to the tractor's. Be sure to reduce the width of the machine if possible for road transport. Stop the engine, park the tractor, and set the brakes before dismounting to engage the machine operation mechanism. Allow plenty of space at the ends of the field to turn without jackknifing, and pay attention to field boundary fences and obstacles. I will post a video with the hitching steps for a 3-point hitch. Now don't forget when you're operating a tractor and an implement. Raise the implement before you turn around at the end of the field while operating an implement attached with a 3-point attachment on a tractor. Now, other power sources besides ground-driven implements, PTO is the most common power source on farm equipment. Other power sources do include hydraulics and electricity. So let's discuss the PTO. The tractor PTOs are designed to rotate at either 540 RPMs or 1,000 RPMs. By counting the number of splines or the teeth in the PTO shaft, a beginner operator can identify the speed of the PTO shafts. So the 540 RPM PTO shaft will have 6 splines or teeth, the lower picture there, and 1,000 RPM PTO shaft will have 20 or 21 teeth on it. That's the higher picture there. So to avoid a back injury, the maximum weight a youth should lift is about 10 to 15% of their body weight. If your PTO shaft weighs more than that, ask for help. The master shield will protect the operator from the PTO shaft. 70% of PTO-related incidents occur when the shielding is absent or damaged. Most PTO incidents happen when the machine is not moving, but the PTO is still running and the operator becomes entrapped. We'll discuss this at a later date. So to reduce your risk of injury, keep all components shielded and guarded, and disengage the PTO and shut off the tractor before dismounting to clean, repair, service, or adjust the machine. And here is a diagram of your PTO guards. So let's talk about the hydraulic components. The term hydraulic refers to fluid under pressure. Farm machine hydraulic systems typically have 2,000 psi or greater. Dirt in the hydraulic oil is the greatest source of damage in a hydraulic system. A pinhole leak in the hydraulic hose can result in tremendous pressure that can be injected into your body. So never check for leaks with your hand. Always use an implement. If you do get an injury from hydraulic pinhole leak, it can cause gangrene and possible limb amputation. And here's a picture of somebody who got a pinhole leak that was in the chemicals were injected into their body and their finger became gangrenous.